Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your very valuable inputs on these papers, as well as very efficacious summation. And so also to the paper writers, Sri Kanubai as well as Jayant Bhai, for the incisive papers that they have written and presented in this session. As a mark of our love and affection to the paper writers and the chairman of this technical session, may I now request Sri Mahesh Sharda, who is the Western India Regional Council member, to present a memento to the chairman. I would now request B.M. Agarwal, the Regional Council member of WRC, to present mementos to both the paper writers, Sri Kanubai and the other paper writer, Sri Jayant Gokhale. I would now request immediate past chairman of Ahmedabad branch, Parimal Shah, to propose vote of thanks of this session.
The president and the vice president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India in absentia, chairman of this technical session, Sri Mr. Ahmedabad, in the words of Sri Jayant Gokhale, Sri Arvind Dalal, both students, learned paper writers and speakers, Sri Kanubai Doshi and Jayant Gokhale, both regional council members, Sri Sarda Sahib and B.M. Agarwal, seniors and friends. It gives me an immense pleasure in discharging my obligation to offer our gratefulness or vote of thanks on behalf of the host, that is the Ahmedabad branch. Friends, firstly, I will extend our deep gratefulness to Sri Arvind Dalal for sparing his valuable time since yesterday morning for the 2 days, and further for discharging his expert knowledge in the both diversified topic, I would say, despite the topic was the taxation investments, but Kanubai Doshi had to go for total investment strategies and on taxation. So sir, our heartfelt compliments and gratefulness to you for discharging your expert comments on both the diversified topics. Secondly, we are very much obliged to Sri Jayant Gokhale. When the asset depreciates, interest in taxation also diminishes or depreciates, but he managed to get the appreciation by giving thought-provoking paper as well as the explanation on the depreciation. Further, friends, we must compliment him for a very good topic, because in all our conferences our attack is on the taxation and auditing. So basically that contributes to our business income head of our Income Tax Act. But very rightly, he also chose a very right topic, so that we should also concentrate on our capital gains and income from other sources by selecting the topic on investments and giving the opportunity to Kanubai Doshi. So sir, Jayant Gokhale ji, we are very much thankful to you for both of your obligations. And lastly, friend, Sri Kanubai Doshi, so nicely explaining the burning topic when the index is escalating like anything. And rightly he regained our confidence, because we all are in dilemma whether it is the starting or it is the end of the index. But rightly he told us, please don't believe in Mark Twain, whatever he has said, put all your eggs in the line. Or Warren Buffett, you forget taxation, because we have to see the overall scenario where we are, and considering the all circumstances, very nicely explained, we should concentrate on capital gains as well as income from further sources of our income. So once I would extend our heartful gratefulness to Sri Kanubai Doshi also, friends. And last but not least, to all the participants, friends, for coming and sparing their valuable Sunday morning in this 2-day conference. And friends, despite I have to discharge my obligation for the third technical session contributors itself, but the whomsoever the participants are present, because otherwise they hungry or whatever it means they have left, I must remind, this is the record as far as Ahmedabad is concerned. By any faculty, professional faculty, whether it is engineering or science or medical, This is the record as far as my memory goes, and I have verified from the persons also. In any paid conference in since last 50 years or 100 years, this is the historic event for the Ahmedabad when there is a registration in a paid conference is more than 1400 friends. So on behalf of all of us, we must congratulate and compliment the Chairman Conference Committee, Mr. C.F. Patel. Only due to his efforts, before 30 days we were in a position to close the registration. So friend, these words, I take your leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Parimal. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a lunch break now and we will adjourn this session, but we will reassemble at 1 p.m. for the fourth technical session, and thereafter there will be half an hour valedictory session. Couple of announcements. CPE credit will be available only against the signatures by the delegates, and to facilitate a smooth registration of CPE credit, 7 counters have been arranged in the registration area. Delegates, please take note and sign against your names for availing CPE credit. There are 7 counters, and according to your number, you please go to the respective counter, sign and get the CPE credit. Thank you very much, and we will reassemble at 1 o'clock.
The worthy chairman of this fourth and last technical session, the distinguished paper writers, Shri Sunil Talati, Shri Gautam Bhai, others on the dais, being the past chairman of Ahmedabad branch, the regional council member, Shri Saurabh Choksi, the past regional council member, Shri Ajit Shah, past president of the institute, Shri Arvind Bhai Dalal, present in the gathering, other central council members, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. I have been entrusted a very pleasant duty of welcoming you all at this post-lunch session, which by and large, as we have experienced, turns out to be a dry one. But believe me, friends, the session today is going to be a very lively session for the reasons that we have today none other than Shri Pinakin Bhai Desai as the chairman of this session, whom we have called in past, and even today we know him as the master blaster on issues connected with taxation and FEMA. Friends, for most of the chartered accountants, the practice is tax-oriented. This practice starts with small audits, which grow to larger audits, and then come in starting with small tax issues, enlarging into larger tax issues. Therefore, this session, as I told you, is going to be a very lively one, because we have 2 very good papers. Both papers are on hot topics connected with taxation and related to accounting standard, accounting issues also. Friends, our chairman has almost and always, for the chartered accountants not only of Ahmedabad but of Gujarat as large, has always lent a helping hand, and through him I would not be exaggerating to state that we have learnt the basics of the law, the intricacies of the law, and even the finer issues of tax laws and FEMA, etc. Pinakinway, we are very thankful to you for that. The papers to be discussed in this session, the first paper to be discussed is of Mr. Sunil Talati on the topic of search assessments. He has pointed out that these provisions relating to search assessment have been tinkered with quite often by the government. It is rightly so. The government has taken a U-turn because when the block scheme was introduced, hardly a time has passed when the new issues which have then come up are now being settled by various tribunal decisions, but all that has been done away with, and then we have now almost gone back to the old scheme of taxation. He has touched upon the issue of disclosures, whether they are relevant now under explanation 5 of section 271(1)(c), and I think that is going to be the burning topic of discussion, because as we have experienced in past, for getting the benefit of immunity from penalty under section 271(1)(c), in cases of unaccounted income unearthed during search, we used to take shelter of making a disclosure as laid down in explanation 5. He has also made a reference to the very worthwhile compilation of the tribunal decisions authored by Mr. Anil R. Shah, a chartered accountant from Ahmedabad, and published by Chartered Accountants Association. I think that would be helpful for the chartered accountants to fight out the old cases, but how far it is relevant under the new law, I think Sunil Bhai will deal with that issue. We have another good paper on controversial issues arising out of treatment to be given under various accounting standards. Friends, as we all know, as students of taxation, we know that book entries are not relevant to determine the allowability of a deduction, as was held in Kedarnath Jute 82 ITR 363. Then method of accounting or method of bookkeeping is again not necessarily marching in the footsteps of the tax provision, which was held way back in the decision of BSC Footwear and reiterated in the decision of Tuticorin Alkalis. And how far that principle would be relevant will again be discussed during the discussion, I am sure, by Mr. Gautam Doshi. However, friends, we are very happy to quite often now in the recent past to come across decisions where the accounting standards which have been followed by the SSCs in giving a particular treatment to a particular item of income or expense or a valuation of closing stock has been upheld by the tribunals on the basis of the accounting standard prescribing that particular treatment. To cite a few, before the AS2 was amended and when LIFO method was also recognized by the AS2, there is a decision on the basis of valuation of closing stock on the basis of LIFO method, which was upheld by the Tribunal of Ahmedabad and again Pune in a couple of decisions on the basis that AS2 provided for giving such a treatment. In case of revenue recognition, the Ahmedabad bench of tribunal in the decision of Noble's Institute has recognized the method of accounting of recognizing the installment fee receipts from the students by a coaching class on the basis of accounting treatment as recognized under AS9. And then we have decision on the construction contracts, AS7, etc. All these issues are going to be relevant, and Mr. Doshi has given a very good discourse in the form of slides in the paper, and I am sure with the worthy chairman addressing us at the end, we are in for a very good session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Jayesh Bhai. I would now hand over the floor to the chairman, because the biodata of both the paper writers as well as the chairman are not only there in the paper book with you, but they are all very well known to all of us. And to devote maximum time for the deliberations in this technical session, May I request Shri Pinakin Bhai to take over from me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, so we begin the technical session, and we are going to discuss controversies on two subjects which are for presentation today. The controversies, as you know, will always have three sides. That there can be opinions on the controversy which is put to us. One could be my opinion on the subject, the second could be your opinion on the subject, and the third probably could be the correct opinion on the subject. So we are not here maybe to get the last solution to any controversy which is there. The paper writers will be highlighting the controversies, will be putting across to us two views of the matter which appeal to them either as counsel of one side or counsel of the other side. And I am sure with two learned paper writers with us, we will have an exhaustive list of what are the relevant considerations or aspects to any given controversy. I know that the time for discussion is probably not the very best time. Survey was taken as to what you normally do around this time on Sunday afternoon, and the answers were unequivocal. We are told that if you would like to do what you normally do on a Sunday, you are permitted to do, because denying that would be against the principles of natural justice. If all of you unequivocally cooperate and decide to do what you normally do, you can expect the cooperation from the paper writers as well, and therefore you need not have any difficulty. In fact, in order to help you do this, but to spot you do this, we are considering whether your neighbor who can spot you when he finds that you are away from him, if he were to report that, then in that case he might get some extra credit, CPE credit, but at the same time his account will be debited, because he will himself not be attending to the discussion if he is trying to spot you. Now our request to you will be to put your mobiles off, because as it is, there is mobile traffic congestion. Now the Ganpatis are reported to be holding mobiles, so let them do the talking and kindly keep your mobiles off. What we have today for discussion are two technical subjects, one relating to the survey search and seizure, not survey part, and the second is the accounting standards and the controversies that are likely to be thrown open by the accounting standards when it comes to the tax assessment of the corporate sector in particular. Let me first deal with some preliminary views on survey, search and seizure provisions, the new provisions, where in survey there are very limited changes, but when it comes to search and seizure, we find that there is a total U-turn. U attitude normally is the preferred attitude, but when it comes to the U-turn, on these provisions, we find that the people are going to have difficult days ahead for the reasons which Sunil will be discussing with us. We had the very old maxim that a poor man's hut is his own castle, and the privacy of this hut is also required to be preserved. But then we had the provisions where there was legitimacy granted to the search and seizure, that anybody for legitimate tax evasion spotting reasons come to your house, can search your house, take away what he believes is the right thing, and you cannot complain. The Supreme Court, in fact, also took a view that even if, in spite of the caveats which are placed on the power to be exercised, if there is some irregularity and the search is found illegal, even then the evidence which has been collected in the course of an illegal search can be produced in evidence and that will constitute valid evidence for the purpose of assessment. Now one may believe whether this is the correct or ethical approach, but then we have the Supreme Court taking this view, and let's accept that view as correct and then proceed further. We had in the past the provisions which were regarded as draconian, and it was thought fit that instead of implementing those provisions, let us have far simpler provisions which will put an end to the matter, and there was introduction of the concept of block assessment. That one block may be examined, charge extra tax at the rate of 60% plus applicable surcharge, do not levy any interest, do not levy any penalty, determine the undisclosed income, and put an end to the matter. Now this, as Sunil rightly said, was perceived as an ongoing disclosure scheme, and therefore there were complaints because people thought that even if I am caught, what all that will happen will be that I will have to pay some extra tax, nothing else is going to happen. There were also a number of disputes raised, and amongst the disputes we found that the definition of the undisclosed income was itself a dispute, whether it is the income which is found as a result of the search, whether interpolation will be allowed, whether gross profit and other items could be estimated, and what do I consider to be the difference between the disclosed income and undisclosed income. What should travel to the block assessment, what should travel to the regular assessment, and I thought the government was tired, together with the complaints on block assessment, on the aspect of this being ongoing disclosure scheme. It is hence that it was found that let's go back to the provisions that we had. And we now, with some modifications, have provisions which will match with the provisions which we always had. Now when we find that there is a search, as Sunil rightly explains, there will be reopening of the assessment of the last 6 years. There is a view for which we will wait for Sunil's comment and then evaluate a little more as to whether it is compulsory to reopen 6 years, whether shall may be regarded as including the conveyance of the meaning may, or whether shall will mean that he is obliged. One view of the matter could be that shall means that he has to issue the notice before he wants to conduct the assessment, but it is not obligatory that he must necessarily reopen the assessment even if he is convinced that there is no undisclosed income which is belonging to this particular year. But that, I believe, would be one small thing, because nothing may happen, the assessment may get closed even if it is reopened for 6 years. Now after the assessment is conducted, and there will be a number of difficulties, we will wait for what the panel speakers have to say, what Sunil has to say, and if I believe that there is something which is required to be added to these difficulties, maybe in the concluding part, I'll look at those remarks also. But having concluded the assessment for each of the years, where income belonging to each year will need to be determined accurately, and if there is any doubt with regard to the year to which income belongs, then in that case the rules of evidence which are prescribed in section 68, 69, 69A, etc. will govern the issue. But income will need to be allocated to each of the 6 years. Tax at the applicable rate of that year will need to be applied. All the provisions which apply to the computation of income of that year will apply. For example, if the transfer pricing provisions are in place in that particular assessment year, the transfer pricing provisions will also apply. Assessment need not be restricted to what has been found in the course of search, but assessment may cover the other undisclosed income also. There is scope for estimation, there is scope for interpolation, mandatory interest will be levied, and there is exposure to the risk of penalty also. Explanation 5 is also therefore likely to apply in full force. This is something which is going to be significant, on which Sunil has expressed some views. Maybe we will have some feedback for the panel speakers, and we will also refer to that maybe in the concluding remarks. There are one or two questions which arise on explanation 5. One is linked up to explanation 5 vis-a-vis the third party assessment. As we know, we are told as part of the new scheme that if there is a search in my house, and if any paper belonging to Gautam is found in my house, and if that paper is forwarded to Gautam's assessing officer, then in that case, Gautam's case will also be treated akin to my case. In his case also, there will be reopening of the past 6 assessment years, and he also will be accountable in respect of the undisclosed income, if any, with regard to mandatory interest, penalty, etc. The question which Sunil might consider is whether explanation 5, to which I am sure he will be referring, is applicable only vis-a-vis the case, that is my case, where there has been a search conducted, or will the explanation also be applicable to Gautam, who is a third party, in whose case there is likely to be an assessment akin to mine, but whether explanation 5 would be applicable to his case also. The second point which you may need to consider will be that I would probably feel that Gautam will be put to trouble only if there is something which has been seized in my hand, and that document which is seized or article which is seized belongs to Gautam. It is only then probably that the jurisdiction of his assessing officer will be assumed under the new scheme. Now, whether would Sunil believe that there has got to be a seizure in my hand before igniting jurisdiction in Gautam's case? The third is, what do we mean by a document belonging to Gautam which is found in my seizure or in my hands? Some officers are accustomed to taking a view, that's what they have been airing, that if supposing I have been purchasing goods from Gautam, then in that case he is likely to issue a sales invoice to me in respect of the purchases which I have effected. Now, in the course of my search, that purchase invoice which has been signed by Gautam is found. Now, is this a document which is seized which belongs to Gautam because it has been signed by him, and therefore the provisions will apply vis-a-vis all the suppliers and all the customers? I would personally believe that that can never happen, because once he has issued the sales invoice to me, that document is a document which belongs to me. It does not belong to him. He cannot ask for the return of that document. Therefore, the document belongs to me. And judged in this light, it's not a document, even if it is seized, which is belonging to him. And on that ground alone, he cannot be put to any more trouble. But these are the types of issues which we are likely to face, even as the third party, and which will go to consolidate the maxim that a man is likely to be known by the company that he keeps, and if you therefore have company with the people who are likely to be searched, there is a possibility that you might also be put to trouble. There is not likely to be a recording of the statement, as the finance minister said. I believe that it was dishonest on the part of the finance minister to have said that on the TV without saying that this is likely to have adverse implications of many people, which Sunil will probably be explaining as to why the statement is going to be very important. But when it comes to the statement, the correctness of the statement can always be put to a test. We have some old circulating stories where people used to say that when there is a statement, you can always take shelter of the statement. You always give certain wrong information on the statement, some absurd information, because as a result of that, you will be in a position to defend at a later stage. that you were not in the right frame of mind when the statement was recorded. There is a story of a gentleman in whose case there was a search, and he was told by Sunil or some such counsel that you please see to it that you are able to establish that you are not in the right frame of mind when your statement is recorded, because that's going to help you at the time of assessment. You can always retract such a statement. So this person who had 2 children, he mentioned that I have 4 children. Now ultimately when the assessment was in progress, he mentioned that, look, I was not in the right frame of mind. Otherwise I would never have said that I have 4 children because I had only 2. The tax department and the tribunal believed that yes, what he is saying is true, and therefore he should be allowed to retract the statement. But when he came back home with some good news and he wanted to tell his wife that, look, we have succeeded, wife said that everything is okay, but now at least so far as I am concerned, you will have to please disclose to me the 2 undisclosed children. Now, if there is no statement recorded, such stories will not circulate. But Sunil will have to tell us as to what has to go on the statement now. And one of the counsels at Mumbai has advised that whatever that the finance minister has said, now when your statement is recorded and we are asked, tell me your name, because that's what the officer is likely to ask you, you say that the person in whose case the undisclosed income for the current year is so and so, earned in the regular course of income, is the owner of this income, and it is me whose name is so and so. I believe that he will be under compulsion to record this statement because he has to write what you are stating. So some different way will have to be found out, even if such question is not put to you. But it will also underlie, as Sunil will explain to you, the need for keeping proper books of account, updated books of account, because so draconian is explanation 5 in terms of his application that income which might have been earned in the regular course, which you may not have genuine intention of withholding from the tax department, but negligently might not have been entered in the books of account, can also be regarded as undisclosed income liable to penalty. The last aspect to which I will refer on the new provision is with regard to stock in trade. Stock in trade cannot be seized is a provision, and it is perceived to be a good provision. I believe it is good because the wheels of business cannot now be brought to a stop on account of the seizure of stock in trade. There are people in whose case the stock rusted, people in whose case the chemicals lost the validity of life. But now that may not happen once the stock in trade cannot be put to seizure. But still, some questions can arise. Take for example in case of a jeweler. In case of a jeweler may have his own stock in trade. But as a customer of the jeweler, I might have deposited some jewelry with the jeweler for the purpose of repairing the jewelry. Will this be regarded, question to Sunil is, stock in trade of the jeweler? If it is, it cannot be seized. But probably the tax department will take a view, which I believe would be rightly so, that it is the capital asset belonging to a customer which is lying with the jeweler, and that is always capable of being seized even in case of the new provision. But we will need to have Sunil's views on this subject. The last thing, not directly connected with the new scheme, is the new act which we have. Fortunately, we find that as at the moment, that act does not have the teeth which may have close bearing with the search and seizure provisions. The Money Laundering Act. As we know, the Money Laundering Act, which is in place today, which again is a very draconian act, has very limited application. Very few offenses have been covered. Directly the offense which can affect us has been that any evidence with regard to gratification to the public servant in an amount exceeding 30 lakhs of rupees is regarded as an offense under the Money Laundering Act. But people feel that as time goes by, the Money Laundering Act might become stricter. For example, at UK, the provisions of the Money Laundering Act are that any gratification to a public servant, no matter what the amount is, can also be regarded as one of the offenses under the Money Laundering Act. In the course of the diary or the content, therefore, if there are such entries, it will expose a person to Money Laundering Act. The worst news is that in UK, for example, the provision is that if, supposing as a consultant, I get information that a particular client or a customer has committed an offense which is covered by the Money Laundering Act, then I am under obligation to inform the person, inform the authority that to my knowledge, to my suspicion, it says to my suspicion, this person is involved in money laundering, and if I do not report that suspicion, I am myself committing an offense under the Money Laundering Act. The second will be that if I know that my client is committing an offense, and if I tip off my client that I am informing the authority that you are committing an offense, then informing the client that I am going to inform the authority is also an offense under the Money Laundering Act. So, whatever that is found in the course of search will have some nexus at a later date after the amendment to the Money Laundering Act, which may be 3 or 5 years hence. We will have to be watchful about that also, as at the moment only those entries where gratification to public servants exceeding 30 lakhs might bring people to some difficulty. I think what we can do is that I can break up at this stage. When it comes to Gautam's paper, we will also check up a few issues. May I at this stage request Sunil to offer his introductory comments.
Chairman of the last technical session, Shri P.D. Desai, my colleague and second paper writer, Mr. Gautam Doshi, ex-council member, my other very dear friends and colleagues on the dais, seniors, stalwarts, and my extremely dear professional brothers. As told in the morning itself, which you also had a debate yesterday, a time has come when we have to decide our role as an auditor while certifying the financial statement on one side, qua handling the tax matters of our clients when it comes to the planning the affairs with regard to the liability of income tax. Is it that yes, it is a paramount and prime duty of a chartered accountant to take side, to help a client as and when or at times or at all the times he is found to be in possession of unaccounted money. He is exposed to the provisions of surveys and search, and perchance the department has information he is actually searched. What are the duties, what are the functions, liabilities, and above all, what should be the acquisition of the knowledge to excel in this field. Why I say so, friends, to excel in this field? Because since last several years I have met number of young chartered accountants to whom I have seen that moments their clients are surveyed or searched, they immediately find it that this is a case where something else, a senior, has to be consulted. And where Amal Dhruv yesterday pointed out, that is it that a profession of chartered accountants also need separate designations or separate mastery in various subjects, just like we have in medicine and engineering. We do know that we have experts on knees, we do know we have experts on hands, there are experts on eyes. Though a doctor is supposed to know the entire autonomy and biology of the body, the expertise and specialization has gone to such an extent that people say now we'll have expert of a eye doctor who will be expert on the left eye and expert on the right eye. But that is not the case with the chartered accountant. And I want to emphasize this, It is extremely necessary for all of us as a chartered accountant to know the basic fundamentals that govern this entire section of section 132 right up to 153. That is how the search is conducted, when the search is conducted, and what are the consequences of that. And should the occasion arise, to our clients, to what extent and how our involvement should be. And therefore I have started with the genesis. We should appreciate why such draconian provision in the Income Tax Act. It is an invasion to the privacy. We ourselves know that we do not have access to the key or to the locker of our own wife's cupboard in our own bedroom. But when it comes to the income tax authorities, they have access to every single drawer, every single nook and corner of the house. And when that occasion arises that yes, when income tax department are taking this search so extensively, whether it is correct prima facie itself. And that is how I started with the genesis. I know most of you now don't need this paper to use as a heavy handy fan. We have tried to see that atmosphere is reasonably cool. I would like to see the pages number 123 onwards, where in 124 I have mentioned how this concept of search started. In 1922 Act, there was no such provision. Under civil law, the rights were given to search someone's premises. But only during Second World War, when the certain people made huge profits, that they were labeled as war profiteers, government realized that they are not paying their due taxes and that we must search them and find out what real income they have earned. So a section 37 was introduced in 1922 Act, which has been incorporated verbatim in this 1961 Act. And that is how the search provisions have remained for all these years. The fundamentals, the initiation of the search, which I have mentioned in para 2. All the conditions that have been laid down in section 132(1) must be complied with. And then there are the specific officers and designations, those who are given these powers, who can do this search. The most important thing is that though in the Act itself there has been a provision that a search warrant can be issued or a search can be conducted by authority like DG, DI, DDI, Chief CIT, CIT or Joint CIT. As we all know, the Honorable Minister himself announced, while announcing the finance bill, that from now onwards the search warrant will be signed only by DG provided he is satisfied with regard to the conducting of the search. Meaning thereby the powers to issue a warrant by the wordings of the finance minister now lie only with the DG. Now the question is that though the Act permits that yes, all these persons can issue authorization and warrant, because the finance minister in the parliament has announced that no, search warrant can be signed and a search can be sanctioned and authorized only by DG, what would happen if subsequently we find during the course of search that the warrant has not been authorized or the sanction has not come from DG? It is from DI or DDI or Chief CIT or so. Would it tantamount to the search being invalid? In my view, it would not. It is more an administrative direction. It is more with a view to see that the younger officers, the junior officers, do not misuse these powers, which are being sometimes quoted as a matter of threats or coercion or for various other reasons, that the government felt that let this highest power be given to the highest authority only. Be as it may, I am very clear, merely because the warrant is not signed by DG or the authorization is not approved or sanctioned by the DG, the search would not become invalid or illegal. Maximum would be, it is a temporary irregularity which can always be cured by the administrators themselves. The second most crucial point is information. That is the starting point of a search. And unless and until the department has specific information, they do not proceed with this. This information is gathered, the information is available by persons who are professionally informers, by other relatives or within the our own concerns of the SSCs or whatever. The question is, this information must be in possession of them, and before issuing the warrant or the authorization for the search, there has to be a specific satisfaction with regard to deriving that yes, there is a reasonable belief because of the possession of the information that this person on whom they are going to search is in possession of unaccounted income or wealth which he has not disclosed or is not likely to disclose. Now we have number of cases wherein, including the lawyers, including the doctors, they have challenged the very validity of the search. They have doubted, they have challenged that the search is void ab initio, because the requirements of having information and having reason to believe that he is having unaccounted income or such was just absent. They had no sufficient or adequate info. Now we have to consider this situation when we consider the 6 years period under section 153A, which I shall be later on dealt with. Comes that thereafter the procedure of the entire search. The rights of the SSC. We are all aware. The ground rules are published. I need not take your time into that. The next aspect is with regard to the making inquiries of items found and seized and panchnamas. These are the things where we chartered accountants have to play very important role. We know many chartered accountants firms have a very regular systematic practice in their office that moment a budget is out, moment a new enactment is out or proclaimed or pronounced, they immediately circulate all this information to their clients. The sole idea is that their clients should be adequately and properly informed, and that is also within appropriate time. Time has now come for us also to see that we educate in this manner to our clients to see that they are unknowingly, by mistake, through oversight, are not hit by these provisions. And therefore it is extremely necessary to educate them what should they keep, what should they maintain, what should they destroy, what are the papers, what are the documents that they should not intentionally or unknowingly keep and possess and maintain, and if they do so, what would be the consequences. This could be in writing, this could be orally, or this could be by seminars like this. The question then comes is of the seizure. The reason of my mentioning is, well, in many cases, the instances have arisen where department is extremely keen to find out that yes, something unaccounted is certainly there. Because they feel that because of the specific information, this SSC must be in possession of 10 lakh cash or 500 tolas of gold or say 1 crore rupees of promissory notes or documents of investments. And when this is not found, we all aware what the reactions are. They break open the premises, they destroy, they damage the furniture, and still try to see whether the SSC surrenders according to their desire or their preconceived notion. And therefore, it is extremely necessary that yes, we educate our clients to that extent. Then comes the important aspect as mentioned by the chairman, seizure. All that is found out in the course of search, including books of accounts, documents, papers, floppy, disk, computer accounts, everything can be seized. Therefore, they were also seizing the stock. Reason is that it was very specifically mentioned, if there are certain properties which cannot be physically seized and taken away by the search party, they can seize it by way of documentation. Maybe immovable properties, maybe stock. Now this credit, I would give two most important credits to the citizens or for that matter, chartered accountants and taxpayers of Gujarat. This amendment I would attribute wholly and exclusively to the taxpayers. I would at present not use the word tax evaders of Unja. They were the poor persons in whose hands department could not find much of the cash, much of the other incriminating document. What they found out were only stock. And to see that they meet or to succumb to their demands, they seized the entire stock, not distinguishing, not differentiating the actual stock, recorded stock or unrecorded or stock or whatever. And a very strong representation was made by them, and the minister immediately agreed, and we see the immediate amendment in the act. Now, department is just not allowed to seize the stock. Now, that does not mean we cannot tell our clients that, okay, if you have unaccounted money, go on keeping and investing in the stock in trade, but that is the item that will not be seized. Because all consequences of having found that unaccounted and to pay tax and penalty thereon would certainly follow. Only there would be a pride of possession that though I am found with so much unaccounted, nothing has been seized from my premises. Then comes the question of seized books and records and or documents. That would also deal with the very interesting and intelligent query raised by Mr. Chairman. What would be the situation under the new amendment when besides 153A, officer is also to deal with 153AC, just like 158BD. As I mentioned, whatever incriminating documents that are found out are likely to be seized. It may inter alia include not only the documents, sheets, notings, diaries and other things that are in the handwriting or that are belonging to the SSC, but also which may indicate or suggest unaccounted income, unaccounted transactions, or may likely to have some finding out or unearthing of unaccounted income or investment in the hands of some another person. Therefore, all such things can be certainly seized. No doubt, the regular books of accounts in which all the regular purchases, regular sales are found out, may take a matter or a subject matter of impounding or noting or putting the stamp, asking the SSC to present to the AO as and when the situation demand. But so far as the recorded or regular books of accounts are concerned, either in the hands of the SSC himself or the other persons, would not necessarily amount to or would not necessarily lead to the seizure and would not necessarily consequential effect to have 153 AC on such persons. Now that takes me to the special provision of search cases. Now this is particularly absolutely historical or unique in India. Because prior to 1/7/1995, what used to happen? Search used to take place, papers were found out, materials, documents, etc. were found out. Whatever the SSC was saying is pertaining to this year were added in that year. SSC was unable to say, I don't remember in which year it is. So AO was adding on the basis of the dimming fictions or the material available or the indications available from the seized material. Then SSC would take that, no, what you added in 1985-86 is not correct. In fact, I have heard in 84-85. This stand would not be accepted. Matter would go in appeal. It would go to CIT appeal and tribunal. By the time tribunal says that yes, though it is unaccounted, it does not fall in 1985-86, it pertains to 84-85. By that time the tribunal judgment comes that yet it pertains to 84-85, the limitation would apply, the time to reopen 84-85 by the AO would vanish, and therefore SSC were getting caught free. Now these were the brainwaves not only of the chartered accountants but certain lawyers also. And I very honestly feel, with utmost respect to the lawyers, that with regard to the challenging of validity of the informations, with regard to the challenging of which income should be added in the block period, which income should not be added in the block period, merely because a piece of paper is found out suggesting that he is involved in bogus purchase, does it mean that it should be added only in that period, or that it has to be presumed that he was in habit of doing for the entire period of block? And as I mentioned, we have excellent digest of decisions by Mr. Anil R. Shah in the publication of CA Journal. What I was trying to mention is, at that time it is the duty of a chartered accountant to honestly advise the client that yes, if this is the case, accept it, pay the tax, 60% at that time, buy the piece. But if we litigate and see that yes, by that litigation, there are chances, may be reasonable, may not be reasonable, matter is always taken to the litigations, and ultimately, as we all know, maximum that we can appear is up to tribunal. When the matter travels to High Courts and Supreme Court, it is the advocates who have to deal with these situations. And that reminds me of a situation of an advocate, that likewise this such a big conference of 1500 chartered accountants, a lawyers conference was organized abroad, and the whole full plane full of lawyers took off from Mumbai, and it was hijacked. And as you all know, they started putting demands. And the government asked, okay, what are the demands? And they listed the demands, 20. And the government said, okay, if you do not meet with your demands, what do you do? And they said, we'll release lawyer one by one. Needless to tell you, government did not meet with any of the demand. Now that be the situation between the approach of a lawyer and approach of a chartered accountant. We have to appreciate, yes, how do we judge a matter? As a chartered accountant, emphasizing more on facts, or twisting the law, interpreting the law, or trying to see that yes, though there is a clear case of concealed income, of concealed wealth, on which the client ought to have paid tax, because the legal interpretation is available, he should be made a scot-free SSC in that respect. That is the answer that one has to ask conscious more rather than interpretation of the statute. Now what happened? As I mentioned, government wanted to see that this kind of litigation is going on, and therefore now, instead of doing away with this aspect that in which year the income pertains, let us decide a block. So from 1st July 1995, the concept of block was introduced, that whatever is found out, you tell in which year the unaccounted income falls, and we will make additions accordingly. You pay 60% and you go scot-free. In that also a lot of litigations arise. Government realized 10 period is too long, so amendment was there in 147. So simultaneous additions was made under this chapter also. Period of 10 years was limited to 6 years. So at least for the 4 years, though there were specific unchallengeable evidences available that there is an investment of unaccounted money or proof that there is unaccounted income, and if it falls prior to the period of above 6 years block, nothing could have been done by and nothing was being done and nothing is being done by the government. But still the litigation continued. And therefore the government realized that in spite of introducing a provision which would have otherwise benefited the assessees who are searched, we are still facing the same situation, or rather litigations have increased prior to or pre-1995 era. And therefore I mentioned on my para 8 that government has taken a U-turn. They are back to square one prior to 1995 era. And they say nothing of this sort, not this 6 years period or not this 10 years block. Now, after 1st June 2003, if there is a search, what we will do is, we will ask you to file return of income for a period of 6 years. You say what is your income in that 6 years period. Pay tax accordingly. Pay interest accordingly. Based on the material that we have found out during the course of the search, the AO will then make the assessment. And all the consequences of having assessed the income would corollarily, naturally follow. Meaning thereby that if for 2001-2002, an assessee has filed a return of 2 lakhs, and after the search, if he revises that return, instead of 2 lakh, he says now it is 3 lakh, he will not be paying only the tax on that 1 lakh income as an extra income which is disclosing based on the material found. He will also be required to pay the interest under section 234B or 234A if the original return is filed late, which I have dealt with in my paper, and the consequential penalty under section 271(1)(c). Now this is the area, this is a point where the expertise of a chartered accountant would be involved maximum. And therefore I have tried to analyze this section on page 127. First and foremost, it starts with non-obstantive clauses. Notwithstanding anything contained in section 139, 147, 148, 149, 151 and 153. Mind well, section 142 and 143 are not here. So, notwithstanding of whatever is mentioned in this clause, the provision of section 153, 153A would govern unless contrary is mentioned otherwise. Now comes the three important, most surprising aspects. Issuance of notice, form of notice and time limit of notice. Act, though has taken care of so many situations, has not taken care of when the notice is to be issued, in what form the notice is to be issued, and the time limit available to the assessee and to the AO for issuance of the notice. After the search is over, the provisions say the assessing officer shall issue the notice. Therefore, whether it should be 30 days, it should be 7 days, or what is the time limit? If it does not issue time limit right up to 1 year and 11 months, what would be the consequence? In what form, in what wordings the notice should be issued? Maybe the rules are coming, more than 2 months have already passed, and we as you all know, 1st June, the entire month of July and August, no raids had taken place so far as Ahmedabad is concerned, though there were certain searches outside Ahmedabad. Only last week we had the first search near Ahmedabad. Maybe when the government is trying to work out the modus operandi and methodology with regard to the issuance of notice and all consequences. And therefore I have said AO must give reasonable time, AO must issue the notice within reasonable time, and reasonable time must be made available to the assessee to file the return of income. Now question is, if it does not file the return of income within the time as mentioned by the AO in the notice, what are the consequences? And if you read the section as it is, there are no consequences. Meaning thereby that if search is there on 8th September, the seizures are completed on 30th September, on 1st November the AO issue the notices asking you to file return by 1st December, you ask for the extension up to 15th December, he grants you that okay, this is the last adjournment by which you must file 15th December, and still up on 16th December or thereafter the return is not filed, what are the consequences? As the act, as the interpretation or the wording suggests, there are no consequences. But then there are officers, there are commissioners who are very vigilant, and they take the stand that if you do not file the notice is issued within the stipulated time, we have a right to issue a notice of prosecution under section 276C chapter, whereby the officer are authorized to prosecute an assessee who is otherwise having a taxable income and is required to file a return, and in spite of having served the notice is not filing the return. On such assessees, a notice of prosecution may follow. So that is the only danger I foresee. Subject to that, there is no other specific statutory provision giving any time limit or contrary to the assessee. Second most important aspect that is to be kept in mind is earlier 6 years only. Meaning thereby, contrary to block period concept, that if search is there on 8th September 2003, the notices shall have to be issued and the returns shall have to be filed for right from assessment year 2003-4, 2-3, 1-2, 2001, 99-2000 and 1998-99. Not for the period commencing from 1-4-2003 to 8th September 2003, which was there in block assessment. And here comes the importance of explanation 5 to section 271(1)(c), which I shall be dealing immediately. Thereafter, I have dealt with the concept of tax and interest. Moment the SSC files the return of income, accepting honestly or as advised by the chartered accountant that yes, there are clear-cut clinching evidences suggesting that in 2002-2003 or 2001-2002, you have earned 10 lakhs, but you have shown the income only of rupees 2 lakhs. It is advisable that you disclose this income. So, qua or as against 2 lakh, it now discloses the 10 lakhs of income, pay the tax. What was the rate at that time? Say in 2001-2002, it was 30% or 35%. He would be required to pay the tax accordingly. If the original return was filed late, or if the installments were late, the consequential interest of 234 and 234B. Surprisingly, as I mentioned, there is no consequential amendment for levy of enhanced interest under section 234C. So if there is deferment of advance tax, 234C proportionately will not be increased. The procedure of assessment I have already laid down. AO, in my view, is duty bound to issue notice under section 143(2) or under section 142(1). This notice must be issued within the time. We have an Ahmedabad tribunal judgment where they have cancelled the entire proceedings merely on the ground that notice under section 142(1) was not issued within the 1 year of the time limit. Therefore, it would be absolutely essential for the AOs to see that notice under section 142 are issued. If after issuance of notice, the SSC does not remain present, AO has a right to do the assessment under section 144. Contrary to block assessment, very two important aspects, that SSC being cooperative, AO can resort to the provision of section 145. He can reject the book and make the assessment with regard to those 6 years, notwithstanding the status of the assessment order already passed or which are pending. Second important aspect, besides that, he can also make additions on the basis of the materials, not only in a particular year, but with regard to all the years. Again, contrary to the concept which was there in the block assessment here, that yes, here are the clear suggestions or indications that this kind of modus operandi, this kind of practice was available for all the 6 years, not only in the year when the loose paper or cheat was found, and therefore he may have to face all those consequences. Then comes the time limit under section 153B. Again, small change, that the AO has been given the extended power, not within 2 years from the date of the search, but end of the financial year from the date of the last warrant was authorized. Now that also has been clarified. The date of the last warrant that was executed is very clearly to be seen. From end of that, you go to the next March, and from that, the 2 years period will be available. So instead of 2 years now, there may be cases where AO will be having 2 years, 11 months, or maybe 2 years and 1 month. Those are the cases, except those 5 exceptions that the period would be extended if the proceedings are challenged, if proceedings are before settlement commission, etc. With further relief available to the AO, that if that final time is less than 60 days, then minimum 60 days time will be available to the AO for completing the assessment. Now then comes the important amendment or the consequence of section 153C. That search is there in the end, Mr. Desai's residence, and Mr. Desai's residence papers belonging to Mr. Gautam are also found. If they are pure and simple, regular books of account transactions suggesting that they are from the regular purchases, regular sales, I find no difficulty. So the questions here are that any money, income, bullion, jewelry or other valuable article or things, books of accounts or documents, seized or requisition belongs to person other than the person referred to section 153A, then such documents, bullion, jewelry, etc. would be passed on to the other assessing officer. Meaning thereby that the AO who is in possession of the papers or documents or chits or diaries which are purported to be written by Mr. Gautam, or in the statement of Mr. Desai says that I don't know, I have not written, it is written by Mr. Gautam. If there are prima facie satisfaction available to be arrived that yes, this suggests unaccounted income, unaccounted transaction, they would certainly be passed on to the AO of Mr. Gautam, and the consequences of reopening of these 6 cases and the assessment of section 153C would certainly follow. Now, what are the issues that will be arising out of this amended provisions I have dealt with in my paper 132. Some of my friends who met me here said, Sunil, you have not only given the dard, but you have also given the dawa. Meaning thereby I have posed the questions and I have tried to give the answers thereof. Answers on the basis of the case laws and the section as it reads too. Therefore, I would straight go to the most important aspect, that is reactivation of the explanation 5 of section 271(1)(c). This was in the statute, but by virtue of the provision of block assessment, this explanation 5 became dormant, right from 1795 to 17-2003. Now, I would say it has been reactivated. The provision which was very much in statute became dormant by virtue of specific provisions has now again became active. And what is that? That is that if during the course of search, if any assets, money, jewelry or bullion, etc. are found out, and if the SSC during his statement under section 132(4) makes a disclosure that yes, this is the unaccounted income which I have earned during this year, that is the return of income which is pending, that is 1/4/2003 to 8 September 2003, or from 1/4/2002 to 31/3/2003, the return of which is now to be filed in September, October or November as the case may be, he may disclose that. And if he discloses that in the statement, what he has to do is only pay the tax, and if there are cases of higher income, the consequential interest under section 234B and 234C as the case may be. Question now comes, the Prime Minister's or the Finance Minister announcements, the provisions by way of a circular of CBDT which I have quoted, that no officer should obtain a statement of disclosure from the SSC. Meaning thereby they are literally bad. They have been told that you cannot obtain a recorded statement of disclosure. And the reasons all we know, those forcible or forced applying coercive method to take a heavy disclosure and to please the boss and what not. Now they have been asked not to do it. And therefore they would just not ask any question. They would inventorize, they would make the panchnama, they would take your regular statement and go away. Now take a case that, yes, there is a very clear case that 10 lakh cash is available. A locker is there which has been recently opened, not opened before 5 years, but recently opened, and 10 lakh of gold ornaments or some notings without date are there. Is it possible for the SSC to disclose? And I would say very confidently, yes. Question obviously would be how? And as Chairman said, when the statement start, the officer would say, what is your name? And obviously the answer should be, my name is Sunil Talati. There comes the importance. We have to see that the client does not say this. He says, sir, during the period 1/4/2003 to 8 September 2003, I have earned 10 lakhs. For the period 1/4/2002 to 31/3, I have earned 10 lakhs. I want to pay tax thereon. I make this disclosure voluntarily as envisaged under explanation 5 to section 132(4), and now I say that my name is Sunil Talati, aged so and so. And this statement is bound to be recorded by the assessing officer. AO cannot say that, no, I have asked you your name, just say my name is Sunil Talati. He is supposed to record a statement. Now when the statement is recorded, his duty is to ask a question. And once he asks the question, his second duty is to write down what the man speaks. He may speak any nonsense, as very rightly said, that yes, I have 4 children in spite of having 2 children. So this may be a case. Man may be interested purposely with a specific idea in the mind, not to speak truth or to speak the truth. But once he decides to give a statement, AO has no authority, no power to say, I will not record this. And if we are able to educate our clients on this aspect, be it by association, be it by such conference, or be, as I say, by any other mode, that would clarify the situation. That if under this new amendment, if there are chances, or if the SS is lucky, that no earlier 5 years diaries, loose papers and notings are found out prior to 31/3/2002. If everything is found found out after 31/3/2002, he would be survived, he would be benefited only by paying tax and token interest, and would be certainly saved from penalty under section 271(1)(c). With this, friends, I would certainly like to end, but would certainly like to draw your kind attention on the annexure that I have mentioned, and that is with the purpose. The reason is that whatever is there, in spite of explanation 5 to section 271(1)(c), if there are cases where you are unable to disclose and correlate the assets found out for this period for which you can achieve or avail the benefit of explanation 5, the consequences are quite serious, quite severe financially. And I have mentioned either in the situation where as against the normal income of 12 lakh, if 21 lakh income is disclosed, there is an additional tax. If 40 lakh income is disclosed, there is additional tax. So under both the situation, under normal circumstances, the impact of tax plus minimum 100% penalty would be much more than what otherwise you would have paid under block assessment scheme. And therefore, it is extremely necessary that we analyze, understand and digest these sections rather than finding out how to do away with, how to challenge this. And that reminds me, while ending, I would say how the chartered accountant's mind work all the time. The chartered accountant was always interested in finding such loopholes. Whenever the amendment, whenever the notification would come, his first and foremost attempt would be to find loopholes. For after doing this all for 70-75 years, once he was very sick and it was almost decided by the doctor and declared he is now on the deathbed. So he was asked what is your last wish? And he said, I want Bible. So the Bible was provided to him. And he was very detailed, in great detail he was reading. So everybody in the family was surprised that this man who has never read anything than Income Tax Act, how come he's reading in so detail the Bible? So they asked him, why you're reading Bible in so detail? And he said, I'm trying to find out loophole. I hope that should not be our concept, friends. Thank you so much for the patient hearing, and I shall be happy to deal with the queries from the members. Thank you so much.